When we look outwards, we believe we see reality. But what we really perceive is not reality itself, it is merely an idea of it. With our senses and mind, we construct a personal map of reality. But a map is never the landscape. The world we live in is a construct of our mind, a distorted projection of reality. Reality, that is what exists out there, but is not directly perceptible to us, let alone comprehensible. Everything we perceive, on the other hand, is in the realm of actuality. Actuality is our subjective cognition of reality. It is the virtual world the I lives in. A speculative simulation, created by your mind, and empirical evolved by evolution.
Behind your thoughts and feelings, my brother, there is a powerful ruler, an unknown wise man, his name is Self. In your body he lives. A body for you he is. So my brothers out there, come and follow me on an exciting journey into your mind.
Chapter 1. The Filter of Perception. Our perception is largely shaped by what we see. But what is it that we actually perceive with our eyes? It is light, or more precisely electromagnetic waves of different wavelengths. The wavelength determines the color we actually observe. The human eye has various light-sensitive receptors on the retina. Rods and cones are responsible for visual perception. The rods, here presented in red, are colorblind and can only process light intensities. The cones, in blue, enable color vision. But every individual cone is actually colorblind. We can only distinguish between different wavelengths because there are 3 different types of cones. Each of these 3 types has different sensitivity ranges and maxima within the visible spectrum. It is only by combination of all 3 of these that colors and intensities can ultimately be distinguished. Within the visible spectrum, we are therefore only sensitive to 3 overlapping slices of it. The actual provision of the sensation of the full palette of colors and their brightness takes place through mental pre-processing. So you might think, okay, no big deal. The senses receive fragmented and incomplete data, process it and provide an appropriate representation of reality. But things are not that easy.
What the senses feel, what the mind recognizes, never has its end in itself. But senses and mind would like to persuade you that they are the end of all things, so vain they are. Senses and mind are tools and toys, behind them lurks the self. The self also searches with the eyes of the senses, it also listens with the ears of the mind. Always the self is listening and searching, it compares, defeats, conquers, destroys. It rules, and is also the ruler of the I.
These are very profound words spoken by Zarathustra. But what does it actually mean when he says that the self is the ruler over the I? Let's take a look at an illuminating example. Chapter 2. The Dance. Most of you are probably familiar with optical illusions. The one we're looking at here is called the checker shadow illusion. Take a moment to focus on the squares marked A and B. What do you perceive about their shade of grey? How significant is the difference between them? At first glance, it seems obvious that there's a noticeable difference, right? But when we remove the context, that difference magically disappears. In this particular case, context means the presence of an object and its shadow. Our visual system employs distinct concepts to assess the location of shadows and to compensate for them in order to derive the actual shade of grey or colour to be rendered in our actuality. This fascinating example offers us a direct experience of how our perception of reality is shaped by context and, consequently, by concepts. The way we perceive the world is not just about raw data from our eyes. It's about how that data is interpreted and modified to finally compile our actuality. Millions of rods and cones gather visual information, but it is the mind's interpretation of this data that creates the experience we often mistake for reality. For this task, the mind relies on a complex network of concepts and associations in order to make sense of the world. However, each person's ability is constrained by the limitations and complexity of their individual conceptual framework. By concept, we don't necessarily think of something that is directly accessible to conscious awareness, but rather an associative mental structure formed through experience and neural processing. These concepts act as unconscious filter that governs our interpretation of the world around us. Just like the concept of shading leads us to perceive the square as being brighter than it actually is. So, for this illusion to manifest, the mind must have a concept of what a shadow is, identify it in the image, and deduce associated expectations from it, such as a shaded surface will appear darker than it actually is. What this example also shows us is how immersive the mental distortion is that our subconscious conveys to us. Even if you know the truth, it's incredibly difficult to unsee the illusion. Take a moment to reflect. Your retina is indeed detecting 6 identical yellow squares on the screen in that very moment. It's your mind that creates the illusion that one square is brighter than the others. This is the intricate dance of perception, a constant interplay between the raw data we receive and our mental filters that together shape our experience. Chapter 3. The Gate to Subconscious. Let's approach the next idea through Plato's allegory of the cave. In this cave, some prisoners are leaning against a wall with their thighs and necks bound. They are forced to look straight ahead, and they have never seen anything but this wall in front of them. A distant fire burns behind them. Its light casting shadows on that wall, from a source of unknown nature to the prisoners. We can understand this scene as an allegory for what we have just observed. The fire represents our senses. Our mind is the creator of the shadows. Altogether they form our actuality. The prisoners now, not even aware of their own hands, start to develop concepts about what they see. They start to recognize various species, establish different categories of them, and develop concepts about their relationships. But to us outsiders, with more context, it is clear that whatever they will mold as their worldview not only cannot be true, but is of a completely different nature. Our perception of reality is inherently limited, because our mental experiences are vastly different in nature, complexity, and dimensionality from the reality they attempt to represent. What we perceive subjectively is a simplified, filtered projection within the boundaries of our own conceptual framework. We live and think in a world of shadows, where the true essence of concepts like hands and fire remains completely hidden and unknown to us. Instead, we navigate a speculative realm of shadows, a practical tool shaped for survival, not for accurately representing reality, though we often mistake it for truth or a faithful depiction of the world. But it is speculative in the sense that the mind can only assign meaning to phenomena by inventing or adopting concepts about them. Our example now illustrates the general idea that the mind lacks any solid foundation for forming an adequate or accurate conception of reality. So it needs to speculate. It is important to emphasize that in this context we are dealing with the conscious concepts of our I, which in turn are based on unconscious concepts of the mind. There are conscious, formalized concepts which are linked to the conscious mind, and unconscious, implicit concepts which belong to the subconscious. The latter result from the behavior of neuronal networks, whose associative nature also leads to structured patterns. These patterns form an implicit logic or conceptual framework that functions outside our conscious awareness and is not accessible to us. This implicit logic is formed by lived experience and the brain's adaptive processes, not by the conscious thinking of the mind. Furthermore, it is associative in the sense that simpler concepts are interconnected, forming a larger conceptual framework from which anticipations arise. Simultaneously, this conceptual framework is the only imaginative space through which we can depict reality. However, these concepts are merely hypotheses that are then empirically tested against reality and constantly adapted and refined. Thereby, these concepts exhibit a kind of inertia, resisting change even when confronted with paradoxes that challenge their coherence. In such cases, the mind may resort to cognitive distortion in order to reconcile the inconsistency. This can then involve subtly altering perception itself in an effort to maintain a stable and coherent mental framework. In this way, for example, expectations can lead to self-delusions. and even well-structured suggestions from outside can induce hypnotic hallucinations, provided they manage to pass the gate to subconscious. Chapter 4.
Wake up.
A simulation is an imitative representation of a process or system that could exist in the real world. In this broad sense, simulation can often be used interchangeably with model. Sometimes a clear distinction between the two terms is made, in which simulations require the use of models. The model represents the key characteristics or behaviors of the selected system or process, whereas the simulation represents the evolution of the model over time. Another way to distinguish between the terms is to define simulation as experimentation with the help of a model. Simulation refers to the reproduction of real-life scenarios for the purpose of the analysis or the design of systems whose behavior is too complex for theoretical formulaic treatment.
There's more reason in your body than in your best wisdom. And who knows what your body requires your best wisdom for? Yourself laughs about your eye and its proud leaps. What are these leaps and flights of thought to me, it says to itself. A mere detour to serve my purpose. I am the leash of the eye, and the whisperer of its concepts. The self says to the eye, "Here, feel pain," and then the eye suffers, and reflects on how it might suffer no more. And it is precisely for this purpose that it must think. The self says to the eye, "Here, feel pleasure," and then the eye rejoices and reflects on how it might rejoice again. And it is precisely for this purpose that it must think. To the despisers of the body, I want to say a word. Their contempt is itself rooted in their appreciation. What is it that creates appreciation and contempt, value and will? The creating self created appreciation and contempt, it created pleasure and pain. The creating body created the mind, as a hand of its will. I am body and soul, says the child. And why should one not speak like children? But the awakened one, the knowing one, says, I am entirely body, and nothing else, and soul is merely a word for something about the body. The body is a great reason, a plurality with one intent, a war and a peace, a herd and a shepherd. Tool of your body is even your small reason, my brother, which you call mind, a tiny tool and toy of your great reason. You say I, and are proud of this word. But the greater thing is, what you don't want to believe in. Your body and its great reason. It does not say I, but it performs I.
This is the eternal journey of the self, flowing through generations via genes, culture, and technology, constantly shaping and being shaped in return.
I am a handrail by the stream. May seize me who can grasp me,